Who's ready to do this some more? Yeah. Falcon of the Millennium Empire. Here we come. So we open up with some kids that we don't know yet, or before, or since. They don't come up again in this, at least not in what I read. But anyway, we open up with some kids. And leave it to Miura to make this little guy look creepy. First shot, first panel, like, yeah, already got creepy kids coming at you. And they're all like, this forest looks different. Did it always look like this? It looks like something from a dream. And I see this and I just want to know what the hell kind of dreams are these kids having? And then Zod flies overhead. The little creepy kid gets excited and the others have to like pull him back. You know what? I'm calling it right now. This little guy's a freak. Just saying. But anyway, moving right along, we get to Guts reuniting with everybody back at the blacksmiths, where they, Goto has now passed away and they've set up this nice little, grave for him where he's been buried. And it's just one of those nice little touching scenes from Berserk. And I can't tell you how nice it is to see these people after Rickert and the little girl after all this time. It really does feel like coming up for air after being underwater for too long. But it lasts for about a whole page, maybe a page and a half before the little girl's like, oh, by the way, we have company. And you already know who it is. We already, she doesn't even have to describe him or the color of his hair or anything before you immediately are like, oh, God damn it. And if I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get all you guys riled up, I might as well do it right away. And first off, this has literally nothing to do with anything, but is it just me or does anyone else notice just how drastically different Griffith is drawn? It's kind of, I understand that he got a new body and he's kind of died and been reborn into this new body and stuff, but he's drawn like shockingly different than he used to be drawn. Like, I don't know, just stuck out really bad to me for some strange reason. And maybe that's just me. Anyway, moral of the story is he shows up. And I don't know if I like Griffith being back. Like, I immediately am bummed by him being, and not like in a story sense, just in a, I didn't ask for him to come back into the story in this way. I didn't really want him to come back into the story in this way. And it's a bummer. It felt like we had effectively moved forward in the story, with the Golden Age and him, and he sacrifices himself, and he becomes crippled, and he sacrifices himself, and he becomes the demon of the God Hand. And now he just kind of pops back up in this new body, and it feels like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. This being the step back as far as story is concerned. And then when he starts talking about his dream, like 2 arcs ago, Griffith. So maybe it's 2 steps back. But it's like, I told you I won't abandon my dream. And you're like, fucking what? And you were essentially the leader of the God Hand and arguably the most powerful being in all of existence, other than maybe the creepy blob god thing. And as you guys know, I don't read ahead in the story, so this very well could change very quickly over time as I read. This could be explained. It could be made to make sense. It could all eventually in time come to click into place in my brain, and I could drastically change my opinion. But as of right this second, when he just kind of pops back up and goes back to talking like his priorities are in line with the priorities that he had an arc and a half or 2 arcs ago, like nothing in between happened, it really was like off-putting in a way. Like I didn't, and not in a good, like, oh, that's unsettling. No, it was just, it didn't jive with the story, for me at least. But yeah, it just didn't jive. And I'm not super thrilled with the way it's presented. I don't know. Moving on. But I will say that the Guts and Zod fight is great. And I have been wanting that for a while, a taste of that for a while, and that's exactly what we got, is just a taste. It's not like the big bad battle to end all battles between Guts and Zod. It's just kind of a little tease for possibly what's to come, and I really did like that. That was a really fun little scene to be added in there. Although, if I'm being honest, I would much rather see Skull Knight fight Zod than Guts. I think that would just be a much more satisfying fight to watch. But I'll take what I can get at this point, and this was good. But the mine is destroyed, and Casca is in danger, and the one to swoop in and save her is Griffith, of course. And I get some really mad Dracula vibes from this. But this scene is actually important because it shows us that Casca, for some reason, even without her mind, is drawn to Griffith. And then when they get together, we see that her brand just goes nuts and starts spraying blood when she gets in contact with him. But Griffith ends up hopping onto Zod and flying away. And then, just to add to the weirdness of this section for me, as he's flying away, he goes, "I told you I would get my kingdom." And I repeat, you are the head of the God Hand. Was hell not enough? I mean, it's like he's sitting there and he's just like, no. An entire dimension of reality simply is not enough for me. I must go down to the land. I will have a kingdom of, like a chunk. A kingdom. A little chunk of land. That's what I want. An entire dimension of reality shall not do. We want a little chunk of land with a couple people that I can rule them all. It feels like a step down from where he was. Just saying. And I'm going to repeat, there could be some ultimate explanation as to why this makes sense and why this was his ultimate desire. But at this point, we don't have it. And at this point, it just seems like a very strange step down from where he was, both in his stature and presentation and his ultimate desire and goals. But anyway, Guts tells Rickard about everything that happened in, the eclipse. And Rickard isn't happy with him because, why am I just finding about this now, etc., etc., which is, that's a fair enough reaction to that, I would imagine. But Puck says, you know what, I know of an elf place that we can go where Casca would be safe from all the demons. You and Casca would be safe from all the demons. And it's called a little place called My Home. And Guts and Casca and everybody are like, hey, that sounds like a great idea. And they leave, but they leave Rickard and the girl behind, which kind of would have made sense back in the older stories, back when, the place wasn't completely destroyed, but now there's literally nothing left. It's all collapsed. So I'm not entirely sure why they leave Rickard behind, especially considering he's not new to the whole traveling with a band of warriors thing. That was kind of his deal before. I mean, the little girl isn't exactly used to traveling and being a part of all this crazy shit, but Rickard is, and she doesn't have a home, so it kind of, I don't know. So they get left behind again, not entirely sure why. Some strange decisions are being made at this point. But we leave all of that behind, and now we move on over to Eyeliner Guy, and he is getting scolded by his general, I'm assuming? I don't know. And he's being told, you Bakaraka are not a warrior clan, etc., etc. When who should show up? Yeah, you figured. I know. Oh, here we go again. Okay. I had to roll my eyes a little bit because here we go. He's back. But anyway, here comes Griffith. And he's in, and he brings Zod with him, and they destroy literally everybody. They just kind of mow through everybody, just tearing it up. And one of the Kashan, whatever you say that, warriors, the big knight guy, comes in and immediately bows and pledges his loyalty to Griffith, and Griffith immediately accepts. So basically setting a precedent that Griffith is going through just slaughtering enemy forces and gathering forces of his own as he goes. And the whole chapter, there's like this weird girl in the crowd that's staring at Griffith the whole time, like drooling over him. And at the end of the chapter, she's like, he's so beautiful. It's almost like he's not human. And you're just like, yeah, that's because he's not. Spoiler alert, he's not. But anyway, Eyeliner Guy decides that now would be a good time to capture Griffith. You just watched him come in, literally mow through the entire place, and you're like, now we capture him. And you're like, really? In the midst of the commotion, get him, you big burly, you, sir, with the big knuckle. Go get Griffith for me. But anyway, right when Eyeliner Guy sends Big Knuckle Guy after Griffith to go catch him, this other guy just kind of shows up. And let me tell you, I absolutely love this guy's character design. And he is like an ex-exile of the Bakaraka, so he kind of knows Eyeliner Guy or something. But either way, I don't care. This dude's character design, it was super f***ing cool, and I really like it. I mean, one panel was all I needed for me to be like, yep, like that. When a Naga shows up, and apparently this is basically just a giant in snake armor. And I am sorry, but if Dungeons and Dragons taught me anything, it is that a Naga is a half-man, half-snake creature with like a tail and stuff. It is not simply a giant in snake armor. I'm just saying. But anyway, there's a little birdie flying over top, and he flies away. And we find out that the bird is actually spying on them, or at least on the situation that's happening down here in the town with all the generals and Griffith and everything that's going down. And it flies on back over to this little girl Gandalf. At least I think it's a girl. I can't really tell, but I'm working under the assumption right now that it is a girl. And she has her own little elf, and and we find out that she can astral project. And my first thought when I see all of this, the little birdie, and everything about this scene, the situation, the little girl Gandalf, the first thing my brain thinks is, ooh, this is really fun, which is completely crazy. And I understand that. I mean, bring Griffith back into the story, and I bitch and complain. And I immediately was like, I don't like this. But you bring in some weird little girl Gandalf with strange magical powers with absolutely no explanation and no precedent to do so, and I'm excited. I don't understand it either. Don't ask questions. I just know I liked this. But anyway, we finish this scene off with the Naga and all the other forces kneeling and bowing and pledging themselves to Griffith. So yes, we are gathering our forces. Alright, so now we're going to get into Serpico's backstory. Farnace's backstory as well, but we kind of get to see both of their combined backstory through the eyes of Serpico. So that's how we're going to approach this. And this section is dense as f***. So I'm going to attempt to paraphrase some of this, or we would be here literally all day just talking about this section. But he has a pretty awful life, and he's poor, and he goes out and he's trying to make the money, and he's trying to support himself, and he gets beat up all the time by these bullies, and then he goes home to his sick mom. His sick mom basically tells him that he doesn't do anything right. Then she has him like rub her down, and I get real mad Zelda vibes from this chick. Zelda from Pet Sematary, not Zelda from The Legend of Zelda. Different Zelda. But you know, he has to do all the work, make all the money, do everything to take care of himself, then do everything to take care of her. You know, normal kid stuff. But she's also consistently telling him that he is a noble born and his father's gonna come and return and save them, which we all know isn't true. But if he is noble born, then that implies that he's a bastard. And one day he's beaten literally half to death, and he lays there and he pretty much just resigns himself to just lay there and die. This is the low that he has been beaten to, literally and figuratively. He's been beaten by life, and he's been beaten by these kids to the point where he's just gonna lay there and die now. When Farnace shows up and saves him for amazingly selfish reasons, because at this point in the story, Farnace is literally the selfish brat to end all selfish brats. So even saving the life of another human being is amazingly selfish for her at this point in the story. But she lives basically in an empty castle all by herself and showered with objects and gifts and anything and everything she could possibly want material wise, she has been given. She is just drowning in objects and money. And she's been given literally anything and everything you could possibly imagine, except for the one thing that a child could possibly want or need, and that is human affection. And because of this, she is spoiled and she's selfish and she acts out and she treats anyone and everyone around her like shit because she's just acting out in general. And then everyone hates her for it. So she acts even worse. It's like a perpetual cycle. And the only person who sees her for anything other than a spoiled little brat, horrible piece of trash person that she quite honestly is Serpico. And that's because he sees past her horrible behavior. What he actually sees, instead of her just acting badly, is he sees her suffering. In the way that he's suffering, not specifically, they come from extremely different backgrounds with very different suffering, but he just identifies another suffering child, if that makes sense. Then, one day, he learns that her father is this supposed fabled nobleman that he supposedly hails from. So now we learn that his father is her father, and they're actually half siblings. The dad actually grants him a certain level of nobility, so long as he doesn't take the family name and basically promises to never actually tries to have any legitimate validity that would actually go with his genuine birthright. Just kind of ignore all that and I'll give you a certain level of nobility, which is far fucking more than he's ever had in his entire life, and he's more than happy to accept that bargain, so long as he gets to continue to maintain to be this little guardian or friend guard, I think at some point, of Farnace. You know, and I just want to pause for a second and say how much I absolutely love this section. It is so good. The storytelling's so good. I'm shocked that my first major investment into the Millennium Falcon arc is Serpico and Farnace. And I am just invested. I'm enraptured by this. It is so good. It is so compelling. This is compelling storytelling, done right, done well. I love everything about this chapter. Everything about their backs, everything. I don't even know what to say about it. I am at this point, I'm invested, and I'm invested in characters I didn't expect to be. I mean, okay, they were kind of growing on me at the end of Conviction, but I'm sold. But anyway, so as they grow, their connection grows. He grows to be a good fighter, but he kind of won't use it. He keeps it a little bit hidden to the point where she demands him to duel people, but then he won't win. He'll only let them end in draws, but he's not winning on purpose. It's very complicated. Eventually, her father gets frustrated with the fact that she won't accept any suitors, and he basically arranges a marriage for her and says, look, I'm sick and tired of waiting. You're going to marry this dude. You're going to marry him when I say arrange the marriage, set it all up. She doesn't take this well, and she burns the whole goddamn house down. So the wedding is off, and her punishment is to go join the Holy Iron Chain Knights, to which they pretty much immediately make her the head of the Holy Iron Chain Knights, because it's tradition that a female should lead the Holy Iron Chain Knights. It's tradition that that person should be nobility, and she is a female, and she is like the most noble of all the nobles that they have, and they're immediately like, yes, and stick her in that position, to which she kind of does well at, because she's a sociopath. Anyway, one day they come across his mom, who's like super crazy now. I mean, she's always been sick, but now she's like completely insane, and she thinks that Serpico is actually his father, so she thinks he's the noble, and he lets it slip that that's actually his mother, which makes Farnace unhappy, and Farnace demands that he be the one to burn her. And I think at one point I said she burned his mom at the stake, but now it's like, oh, he kind of burned his mom at the stake. Actually, they do it together, It's like weird. It's almost like presented as like the final moment of their, I don't want to say bonding. That's not necessarily the word I'm looking for. But kind of like it's almost like the moment they kill his mom together. And it's kind of like the final cementing moment that makes these two inseparable. Oh God, I don't know. And I don't even know what to say about this story at this point. This is so good. I mean, this is terrible. This whole section's terrible. But it's so good. The storytelling on some of these sections is so good. It's hard to wrap your head around. Then we go straight into Guts and Casca attempting to survive. And this is it's literally too much for Guts to handle. If you thought it was hard for him to survive out by himself, say in the conviction arc with the brand, when he was fighting all night demons and then he would sleep for a couple hours in the morning because that's literally all he was able to get before he would wake up and have to travel or do something and then fight demons all night just so he could get a couple of hours in the morning, and how exhausted he got at the end of that. If you thought that was hard, add Casca, add her brand to his brand, and add the fact that not only is she not helping, he's got to worry about her wandering off. He has to worry about protecting her on top of not fucking dying himself. This is going to get bad. And I mean bad. This whole section is basically one giant downward spiral from the start all the way to the end. As it goes on, he's going to get more and more desperate. He's going to be tormented by all of his demons, by that little demon dog thing is going to come back and it's going to start hounding in his ear, just chirping away at him like the voices in his head fucking with him the whole time, telling him if you just killed Casca, it'd make everything a lot easier, you know? And it just goes and it gets worse and worse and worse as time goes on, to the point where he eventually breaks under the pressure. He just can't take it anymore. And in the heat of everything that's happening in the battle and everything, he actually ends up choking Casca, to which she rightfully freaks out, and now she's afraid of him again. To which his solution to this is to just tie her up. It just keeps getting worse. But at least it can't get any worse than this, right? So Casca gets away and she gets captured by a group of men. And then this group of men attempt to rape Casca, to which Casca's reflexes kick in one of those reflex moments that she has periodically. And when Guts finds her, she's literally just standing there, surrounded by the dead bodies in the aftermath of her reflexes, or whatever we're calling these at this point. But now, Guts, ever the fucking idiot, in his exhaustion and desperation and just his royally mentally screwed up state, he's so mentally and physically broken at this point that he sees her and he tries to take advantage of her. I mean, of course he catches himself and he stops himself before anything really happens, but it doesn't stop it from making it just a little bit worse. Everything that happens here makes it just a little bit worse. And again, it's just such good storytelling, and I mean, just back to back between the Serpico Farnace sections straight into this. And as horrible as this is, and you can't stop it from going down, you're watching it go down the drain and nothing you can do stops it. It just keeps going. But it's so good. It's so compelling. It just sucks you right in. Now it's on a roll, and it has got me. And it's got me really in. At this point, I really just can't say enough good things as to what's happening. And then Isidro and Farnace and Serpico and all of them show up and bump into Guts and Casca. And I cannot tell you, I have never been this happy to see these people ever. Except for maybe Isidro. He probably could have stayed missing and I would have been totally fine with that. But they're all here now and they're all going to help take care of Casca and keep her safe and blah, 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 blah. And Guts is so completely broken by this experience of trying to survive with her alone by himself, that not only does he not kick them out immediately, he almost looks relieved to see them, which is, well, at this point for Guts, that's probably the most we could hope for. It almost even feels like growth. But flash over to a battle scene with a little boy, and guess who's going to show up to the battle scene? Wow! Yeah, we're doing it again. Yeah, remember all those good feelings we built up about wonderful storytelling? Woo! We're back to this stuff. Actually, this one's not as terrible. But yes, Griffith shows up. And this time his generals are with him. And they burn through. As usual, just kind of swoop in and murder everybody. And we very quickly move right along to the after the battle camp scene. With the little boy now wandering through camp. The Band of the Hawks camp, we'll call it. But he runs into this little girl and she keeps reading his mind and shit as they go. But that's kind of beside the point. And she's walking around the camp and showing him just how great everything is when you're with Griffith. Pretty standard Band of the Hawks stuff, actually. Although he doesn't really like the way that enemies are folded into the group after they've been defeated, but when she leads him into a literal evil forest filled with literal evil demons. Like, literally. And they eventually come out the other side. Some shit happens in there. No one really cares. But they eventually come out the other side. And now we see that Griffith is sitting there. And he is surrounded by spirits. The spirits of the dead. And he is allowing his followers to come up and communicate with their dead family, relatives, friends. I don't know. One last time. Before they move on or something. So right here, immediately we go right back into Griffith. Now he's got powers. And now he's using his powers. Literal magic powers, not just his powers of the mind and convincing suaveness, but literal magic powers now to manipulate and twist people, to bend people to his will. This guy's just the worst. I mean, right back at it. Like we didn't miss a thing. Okay, so we need to talk about Griffith for a minute. First off, this section I actually kind of liked. The whole walking through the forest thing and the little demon camp and the demons in the woods. The gathered demon generals that he's got there. And then coming out to see him sitting there with the spirits. This section I actually enjoyed. I thought it was really neat and it was really cool. And I enjoyed the flow of it and the way that it worked for me. It's the first Griffith scene since his return that I've actually been like, well, that was fun and I enjoyed that. And I might ultimately settle into at least accepting this, maybe, or even enjoying it. But at the very least, I think I'll settle into accepting it because now it's as it goes on, it is really, really cool. But my problem with it, I think, is that it just feels out of place for the story so far. And let me explain. Okay, so I've heard a lot of people talk about not what's happening right here, but just Berserk in general. I hear a lot of people say, oh my gosh, as I read, it was so amazing because it was so obvious as the more I read and as I went on, how he had this all planned out from like the get-go and things happened way later in the story and you realize, oh my gosh, just how he literally had this planned from the get-go. And I don't get that feeling at all. I get pretty much the exact opposite feeling. I get the feeling that this dude was just all winging it. And seriously, at this point in the story, I feel like he had two great ideas for two different manga. And he couldn't decide which one he wanted to write. And so up until this point, we've been like, well, we'll just write this manga, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one. So he's been kind of like alternating between the two great manga that he wanted to write that he couldn't kind of figure out which one he wanted to write. And at this point, he's gone, well, if I just kind of start to link them together and kind of shuffle them together here, I might be able to slide it all together. So these two alternating manga that I've been jumping back and forth between the two, I might be able to fit them into one and shuffle all the pieces so into one manga that makes sense. And we're just at the beginnings of that linking process, and we'll see if it works out for him in the end. And if there's anything that he has taught me at this point, is to just give him a little bit of faith and just kind of hang in there, and it will. He's a very good storyteller, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I'm just going to kind of have faith that he's going to make this merging work. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it that being a storyteller who wings it is a bad thing. Stephen King is one of my favorite authors of all time, and that motherfucker literally has said in interviews that he doesn't know what a character's going to do until that character does it while he's writing it, because he doesn't outline anything. He's just the ultimate start writing and wing it author there is. You know, he's not one of those, I'm going to write an outline and I'm going to have myself this planned out. So if this guy's winging it, good for you. I don't care. It's just the vibe that I get. I don't feel like this was really pre-planned. I feel like he kind of was letting the story take him where the story was going. I think this was more of a, he was letting the story take him, and wherever. I give up. I can't. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. He let the story go where the story. Anyway, if that made any sense to you, that's great, because I'm not sure it even made sense to me as I worked through it in my brain here for you. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead for this section that I read right here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it an 8. And I'm going to give it an 8 because most of the times that Griffith showed up, it really felt like a 7. And any time where Griffith wasn't there and I was getting the evolution of Serpico and the evolution of Guts and Casca trying to survive alone, pretty much any scene where Griffith wasn't there felt like it was an absolute 9. And any scene where Griffith was there felt pretty much like a 7. So I'm going to go, hindsight, I'll see how I feel about all this later. But for right this minute and not knowing where this is going, I'm going to give this particular section an 8. Anyway, everybody, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.